This video is sponsored by PCBWay. Welcome everyone! In my last video on this topic, I said that I finished this product because I managed to make a proper connection between the front panel and the PCB using a flexible PCB. But in the meantime, I've been searching for alternative and better solutions because the cost of manufacturing these flexible PCBs is not exactly cheap. So I tried to find something off the shelf that is mass-produced and therefore cheap. In this video, I show you the solution I found, explain a bit more about the board and demonstrate its capabilities and performance. I will also talk about the official Arduino library I made for this chip, because there have been some improvements done on it as well. For those who haven't been following this project, I want to start with a short introduction. This is an 8-channel data acquisition board with a high-performance AD converter chip, ADS1256, and a high-performance microcontroller, RP2040. The ADS1256 is an 8-channel, 24-bit analog-to-digital converter chip that is capable of reaching up to 30,000 samples per second output rates. It has fairly good performance, which makes it popular for projects that require multiple high-resolution channels. Originally, I developed this board with an Atmega 32U4 microcontroller, but I quickly realized that despite its native USB, many GPIO ports, and somewhat better performance than the average Arduino board, it can't keep up with the ADS1256 at high sampling rates. Therefore, I transitioned the design to the RP2040. This is a much more powerful microcontroller with even more GPIOs, native USB support, and a huge amount of memory and more. To ensure good performance, the ADS1256 receives its reference voltage from a buffered Ref5025, a 2.5 volt voltage reference chip. The buffering is provided by an OPA 350 chip in guess what, buffer or voltage follower mode. The ADS1256 has its own digital power supply provided by a separate voltage regulator chip. The main circuit board has other convenient features such as easy access to the programming pins of the RP2040 or the onboard 3.3 volt line. Not the 3.3 volt line of the ADS1256, but the separate one that feeds the rest of the circuit. There are also several test points on the circuit that allows the user to check the actual reference voltage value or to see if the 3.3 volt for the ADS1256 is really 3.3 volts. Where it was possible or necessary, I used planes for power instead of just traces. This is especially valid around the USB supply and around the 3.3 volt voltage regulator. There are invisible features in the board as well. They are not visible because they are inside the board. This is because the board actually has 4 layers. On the top and the bottom layers, I run the signals and the power rails. I try to separate them a bit, and for example, most of the 5 volt lines are on the bottom side of the board, the 3.3 volt and the voltage reference lines are on the top side. The 2 middle layers are both ground layers. This might not be acceptable by some people, but after reading a lot of discussions on Stack Exchange and Reddit, it seems that the signal-ground-ground signal layout is preferred by many people. So after hooking up the RP2040 with its external memory and the ADS1256 chip, there are still 25 GPIOs left. They, and the 3 power pins, ground, 5 volt and 3.3 volt together, are 28 additional connections that can or must go somewhere. So this started my initial work, where I made a front panel out of a PCB where one can access all these pins. But at that time, I used a very cumbersome approach that needed a lot of very meticulous soldering and wire crimping. Then, some viewers suggested that I should look at some automotive connectors, and later I ended up finally making the previously mentioned flex PCB based connector. Now finally, and I swear, I settled with this solution. I found a short enough off-the-shelf 28-pin flexible ribbon cable that fits the already existing connector on the main PCB. Furthermore, I found a much cheaper socket for the front panel on AliExpress as well. The only problem was that I had to reroute the front panel because the socket was mirrored compared to the originally used one. So some of my earlier front panels don't work with this cheaper type of connector. With these changes, I finally dare to say that this project is finished and I think it's mature enough to become a product. If you want a similar PCB, please visit my PCBWay project page and check out the 2-layer main circuit board and the corresponding front and rear panels. If you don't want to assemble the PCB yourself, you can of course rely on PCBWay's assembly services. They can both source the parts and assemble the boards for you, so you receive a product that is ready to use. Don't forget to check their other services, related to CNC machining, metalworking, and 3D printing. To test whether the front panel works as it should, I did a very simple experiment. I wrote a short code that reads all the GPIOs that were made available on the front panel. It is just a simple digital read function. Then, with the help of a small resistor, I shorted the pins to 3.3 volt one by one. When the shorted pin was recognized by the code, it printed the corresponding port number on the serial terminal. It was a bit tedious to go through all the 25 pins, but it is part of the quality check process. Thanks to the fact that the RP2040 has a very flexible way of handling the GPIOs, we have access to many extra features via the front panel pins. They are not only GPIOs, but they can be used as SPI, I2C or serial peripherals as well. In my earlier video, I already demonstrated this by connecting the display to the front panel and displaying some measurement data on it. With a bit more flexible thinking, we can turn this data acquisition module into a remote logger by adding not only a display, but also some buttons and an SD card reader. Also, since the last video on this circuit, the Arduino library for the ADS1256 chip has gone through a lot of improvements. For example, the SPI communication part of the library has been entirely reworked. This allows the user to assign any of the SPI peripherals of the microcontroller to the ADS1256. Previously, this was only possible by modifying the library, but now the user can do it by just updating a few lines in the provided example code. All the SPI communication related lines are carefully documented in the library's documentation, including the microcontroller specific parts. I carefully tested the library with at least 10 different microcontrollers, such as the Teensy4, different ESP32 models, Arduino Uno, Nano, and Mega, STM32 Blue Pill and Black Pill, and so on. These boards and their configuration are also in the example code with the necessary pin definitions and so on. So finally, let's have a series of tests that demonstrate the capabilities of my board with the ADS1256 chip and the Ref 5025 voltage reference. First, I performed a noise performance test. In this test, I shorted the A in plus and A in minus together and connected them to ground. Then, I set the input to differential input, set the PGA to 1, and set the sampling rate to 100 samples per second, and collected 10,000 samples. Also, to see if decreasing the sampling rate helps with the noise, I performed the same experiment with 10 samples per second sampling rate. The board achieved a peak-to-peak noise of only 3.6 microwatts and an RMS noise of approximately 0.46 microwatts. A rough estimate for the noise-free bits is about 21.4 bits at 10 samples per second and PGA 1. This is based on the 10 watt range of the ADC, -5 to +5 watts, and the peak-to-peak noise of 3.576 microwatts. Just as a comparison, the datasheet reports 22.3 noise-free bits at 10 samples per second and PGA 1. Not too bad, I guess. The next test was a reference voltage measurement. I have an AD584M voltage reference circuit. I measured its 2.5 volt output using all the single-ended channels and all the differential channel pairs. As we can see, the single-ended measurements are remarkably consistent. The differential channels are not that consistent, and they report a slightly different values as well. This could be due to several reasons. The single-ended and the differential measurements require different input paths. This essentially doubles the contribution of input leakage, source impedance effects, settling errors, and so on. Also, if there is an imperfection in the common mode rejection, the differential mode picks it up. Furthermore, source impedance imbalance can also occur due to the fact that while A in plus was directly connected to the source, A in minus was connected to the ground, and these two nodes might have different impedance. Also, initially, the performance was somewhat worse in the beginning. So much worse that I disassembled the enclosure and cleaned the board. As it turned out, the flux residue showed up in the measurements and offset the A0 input significantly. Probably the cleaning is still not sufficient because the diff01 channel still shows a noticeably lower value than the others. The third experiment is the measurement of small signals with different PGA values. I used the small signal from the same voltage reference I used above by dividing its 2.5 volt output with a 100K and 1K resistor ladder and applied different gain values to see how the board can resolve tiny signals at different gain settings. The signal should be roughly 25 millivolts, which is ideal for testing all PGA settings between 1 and 64. At PGA64, the highest measurable signal is 78.125 mW, so the expected 25 mW is well within this range. The difference between PGA1 and 64 is tiny, only about 14 microvolts. So the measured voltage stays almost constant from PGA1 to PGA64. This means that the PGA scaling works correctly. Then I extended the test that I did first and evaluated the noise performance at 6 different data rates between the minimum and the maximum rates. I used the same voltage reference circuit as before and measured its output at different sampling rate values. Decreasing the sampling rate greatly improves the noise performance. The measurement confirms the practical trade-off described in the datasheet. The ADS1256 can be configured either for high-speed measurements or for lower noise, higher resolution measurements by changing the digital filter setting through the D-rate register. I also checked what happens when I flip the polarity of the input signal when measuring in differential mode. Since the ADS1256 can perform true bipolar differential measurements, I wanted to test it as well. I used the same resistor-divided 2.5 volt voltage reference as I used in one of the earlier tests. I connected the output of the divider to A0 and the ground to A1. I measured 1000 samples at 100 samples per second data rate and evaluated the noise parameters. Then I flipped the wires so that A1 measured the output of the resistor divider and A0 was connected to ground, and I measured the same parameters. The original wiring gave about 24.31 mW, and after reversing the connections, the value changed to approximately minus 24.32 mW. I repeated the test several times, and the difference between the measurements remained within 10 to 15 microvolts. This shows good symmetry and repeatability. And then finally, I performed something like real-life measurement using a tiny 100-gram load cell. I connected the output of a 100-gram load cell directly to the input of the board to show how it works. The excitation voltage was provided by the previously used reference chip at 5 volt. Then I applied different loads and read the corresponding counts. The data rate was set to 10 samples per second, and the PGA was set to the highest value, 64. 20 samples were collected through A0 and A1 differential input. I applied 5 different loads on the load cell to see its output. I started at 0 gram and gradually increased the load up to 100 grams. The measured data points were plotted with the applied weight on the x-axis and the corresponding mean ADC counts on the y-axis. A linear fit was then applied to the dataset. The slope of the fitted line, parameter A, represents the sensitivity of the system in counts per gram, while the intercept, parameter B, represents the zero offset count value. By rearranging the linear equation and substituting the measured ADC counts, the applied weight can be calculated directly in grams. The resulting calibration curve showed good linearity over the tested range of 0 to 100 grams. This demonstrates the suitability of the ADS1256 and load cell combination for precision weighing applications. It is worth noting that the calibration parameter A remains fixed once a calibration procedure has been performed. However, the zero offset value can be updated at any time by tearing the scale. This is important because updating the zero offset removes errors caused by the load cell drift, the mounting hardware, temperature changes, and other environmental influences. As a result, the scale can maintain accurate measurements without requiring a complete recalibration. Only the reference point is adjusted, while the sensitivity of the system remains unchanged. So this is all that I wanted to show you about this project and product. Don't forget that I have a website where I published a very detailed article. Plus, I have a PCBWay project page where I shared the earlier 2-layer version of this circuit and the front panels too. Please check the links in the description for more information. If you like these projects and you want to support me, please consider becoming a channel member. Your support will contribute to future projects. I hope you liked the video and you found the project interesting. See you in the next video.